Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today to join me in this conversation with Vibha Bakshi, the director of Sunrise. I want to start by thanking the audience for being here, thanking Vibha, obviously, and also thanking the sponsors of this event, the Jerome Chazen Center of Columbia Business School, the DEI initiative at Columbia Business School, the Columbia Global Center in Mumbai, the Columbia Institute for Research on Women, Gender, and Sexuality, and Columbia Business School South Asian Business Association. So thank you all. And without further ado, let me jump straight in to introduce our wonderful guest today, Vibha Bakshi. Vibha is a national award-winning director and a producer who's got awards from the President of India. Specifically, she's a recipient of 4 National Film Awards, which is the highest recognition in Indian cinema. She's got the honorary doctorate, the Doctor of Humane Letters, from her alma mater, Boston University, for her work as a journalist and a filmmaker. The film Sunrise, which you all saw, which she directed and produced, has won the Best Film Non-Feature at the National Film Awards from the President of India. And Vibha has a Columbia connection too. Vibha's husband, Vishal Bakshi, is CBS class of 2000, and he's a founder and managing partner at Avatar Growth Capital. He's also a co-producer of this film. Vibha's earlier film, Daughters of Mother, India, which put the spotlight on the burning issue of rape and gender violence in the country, holds the distinction of being the most awarded social campaign in the world. Vibha's earlier films as co-producer with Academy Award-winning filmmaker Marion Delio include Terror at Home, a film which was part of the United States government's Emmy Award-winning campaign to stop violence against women for Lifetime TV, and Too Hot Not to Handle, HBO's highly acclaimed film on global warming. Vibha is a former business reporter for CNBC and a founding team member for CNBC in India. As you can see, there's a theme here with all of Vibha's work. And Sunrise is such a powerful and thought-provoking narrative, focusing on the responsibility of men in the struggle for gender justice and gender equality. Even though the film deals with really thorny issues, by the end of the film, you leave educated, inspired, and hopeful. This film has won so many awards and has been recognized, including by the UN. And Vibha, I'd like to start by asking you, what inspired you to make this film?
First of all, thank you very much, Gita, for such a kind introduction, and thank you to Columbia University for putting all this together. Very, very grateful for the support. Gita, as a documentary filmmaker, I've always seen that I don't choose the film chooses me. And I've seen that again and again. And I was screening my previous film, Daughters of Mother India, and as you said, it puts the spotlight on the burning issue of rape and gender violence. And we had begun screening across the police force in India. I had screened for over 150,000 police officers to gender sensitize the force. And it's towards the end of my screenings when I reached the northern state in India called Haryana. And while I was screening for the police here, there was a social activist who came up to me and said, there is a farmer who in an arranged marriage has married a gang rape survivor. And I was very surprised to hear that, simply because here I was in India's seat of patriarchy, and for something like this to happen would be very, very uncommon. So I went into the hinterlands searching for this farmer. Gita, I had no name, I had no village, but with the help of the police, I was able to find him, and the idea of Sunrise was born. And I would love it if, just for the audience worldwide, I have put together a 4-minute teaser, which will just give a recap of the film. So that'll be lovely if we can play that.
Sure, that's great. Thank you, Vibha.
The Haryanvi male is someone who looks at women. ये तो छोटी है. That is ingrained in the Haryanvi side.
बहुत ही सम्मान के योग यहाँ के राज्यपाल क्या है कि पुरुष प्रधान समाज है. यहाँ पुरुष ही फैसले करते हैं, महिलाएं उसमें इंटरफियर नहीं करती.
ये लड़की तो हम नहीं देंगे, कराओ अल्ट्रासाउंड नहीं देख लें इसके पेट में क्या है.
हर कोई जाकर के अपने लिंग की जांच करा रहा था. कुछ लोग यहाँ भी जांच कर रहे थे. जांच कराने के बाद में लड़का हुआ तो रखना है, लड़की भी तो गिरानी है.
इन डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स को आम जुबान में कुड़ी मार डिस्ट्रिक्ट कहा जाता है, लड़की को मारने वाले.
सबसे मेन बात यह कि लड़कियों की कमी के कारण मेरी शादी नहीं हुई.
भ्रूण हत्या के कारण लड़कियों की कमी हुई है, इसलिए हमारे जनरेशन है उसमें भुगतना पड़ रहा है.
जब शादी नहीं होती तो बहुत सारे ऐसे तरीके उनको अपनाने पड़ते हैं जो समाज की नजरों में बहुत गैर जरूरी है. जैसे कि झारखंड से अपनी पत्नी को खरीद करके लेकर के आना. एक नए प्रकार के गिरोह पैदा हो गए हैं समाज में जो लड़कियों की सप्लाई का काम करते हैं.
There is a strong correlation in districts which have low sex ratio and crime against women.
25-30 years ago, I could not have imagined a gang rape in Haryana. Today, you're hearing it every second, third day.
ना तो ये था कि भाई कुछ नशा हुआ या मैं बेहोश हो गई थी. मेरे को ये पता था कि भी तेरे साथ में गलत हो रहा है.
Then she's taken to another person and another person. She's raped again and again and again.
जैसे समय रिश्ता होता है वैसे मेरा रिश्ता तय हुआ था.
अगर ये बात इनको शादी के बाद पता चलेगी तो क्या होगा?
मैंने तभी कहा कि रिश्ता भी आपसे करूंगा और न्याय भी आपको दिलाऊंगा. ये चीज मेरी गारंटी है, मैं लड़ूंगा आपके लिए. मैं आखिरी सांस तक लड़ूंगा, हाई कोर्ट से लेकर सुप्रीम कोर्ट तक लड़ूंगा.
बेटी का पिता होना मतलब सोसाइटी में अलग सी सोसाइटी में उन लोगों ने बना रखी है कि ये बेटी का पिता है. मैं मेरी बेटी के लिए कुछ करूं, उसे लड़की होने पर कभी ये महसूस ना हो कि वो एक लड़की है.
और वो रुकेगी कब? जब पुरुष की तो मानसिकता में बदलाव हो जाए और महिला को उसके अधिकारों का पता चल जाए.
तो अपनी आजादी के लिए करोगे संघर्ष?
बड़ा कोई कहे क्यों कराओ पढ़ाओ, ये तो दूसरे आदन है.
मेंटलिटी प्रॉब्लम जो है ना, इसको जंग ऐसा लग चुका है कि धीरे धीरे करके घर घर में, हर गांव गांव में अपने खुद के माँ बाप से लड़ने की जरूरत है. अंदर घुस.
आराम से.
मुझे देखिए, मैंने महसूस किया, मैं बदल गया. जिस दिन दूसरे पुरुष महसूस करेंगे तो वो बदल जाएंगे.
Vibha, that gives me goosebumps every time. That is so powerful. Let me ask you this. You chose to tell the story through the lens of men taking on this battle on women's rights. And I see here this kind of parallel to the role of allies, people who can really help those who are disempowered in society, who are marginalized. And you had this really interesting tagline, ordinary men in an extraordinary fight. And yet, knowing a little bit about rural India and the cultural milieu in northern India, I find these men extraordinary, exceptional. So what is it about Sunil and Jitender? What is it about them that makes them take on this fight despite the circumstances, despite the cultural taboos and norms? So what's special about them in your view, and how can we replicate them all over the world?
Absolutely, Gita. This is exactly how we felt when we met these men. I had spent, 2 years filming Sunrise across 50 villages. And people ask me, how did you find these men? We lived on the ground. There was no script. There was nothing that was pre-planned. I actually found these incredible real life heroes on the ground. And I think this is the question that we ask is, what is it that makes them extraordinary? They have grown up seeing strongly embedded patriarchal values, yet they have had the courage and the conviction to challenge the status quo. And this is what makes them incredible. And Gita, I think what they did not expect is that their biggest fight would be with other men who they have to be combating at every step of the way. Today, Jitender Chattar, the farmer, he has sold his land fighting for his wife's justice. Sunil Jaglan, the village chief, has 251 false lawsuits against him that were filed by villagers to break his resolve. There are no fairy tale endings, yet they remain committed on this fight. And this is what makes them extraordinary. And it's an example for the rest of the world to follow. If they can do it, there is no excuse for any other person.
So it seems it's a little bit of commitment, belief, motivation. That's what makes them stand apart and makes them special.
Absolutely. And the courage and conviction. It's not easy to do what they are doing. They're going against the society.
Yes. You said a little bit about the making of the film, that you had no script. You went into these villages. You started speaking to people. Can you share a little bit more about how you made the film? How did you decide who these protagonists would be? You did talk about the first one. In the case of Jitender, someone told you about him and you went seeking him out. How did you find Sunil? How did you get people to open up to you? Because the conversations are very illuminating in the film. So what was that process like, if you could describe that?
Yes. Gita, as a woman, I was entering into a very patriarchal society. And I think the hardest thing was to be questioning the patriarchs. They were as uncomfortable with me as I was with them. And what I realized was that, for the first 3 to 4 months, nobody spoke to me. Wherever I went, they said there is no problem. And this is when we took a decision that unless we don't live on the ground and do not win the trust of the people, this film is not going to happen. And this is exactly what we did. We lived on the ground, won the trust of the people, and by the end of it, Gita, it was the people of Haryana who were leading us to the incredible characters that we met. When the film won the National Film Award, the media, said Vibha is the brave one. But Gita, it's not me who is brave, and it's not the film team. It's the incredible people of Haryana who dared to break the silence. The full credit goes to them. So it was really, they were leading me to the stories. It seemed like they almost wanted me to succeed in telling the story. And this is what happened. In the case of Kusum, Jitender's wife, who is the rape survivor, I was, along with the team, spending a lot of time with Jitender. And then after months, she walked in, she unveiled and looked at me and said, "The shame is not mine. The shame belongs to those who've committed the crime." And that's how we got Kusum. So it was her time when she broke the silence. And I think she has given so much strength to the other rape survivors to come forward and break their silence. She has been a game changer in this movement.
That is fascinating. So you immersed yourself in these villages in order to win the trust of people. Yeah. And that's how you were able to identify who to interview, which doctor is going to talk about it, which police officer was involved. All the characters in the film, they come together to tell this story in such a powerful way. So I think beyond the content, it's the style in which you have created the film that really makes it linger in your mind even after you've finished watching the film. So truly, truly powerful. And it also said in the film that you took, it's over 2 years, because you do talk about 1 year later and then 2 years later. So can you tell us, when you visited the villages over time, did you see any changes in the villages? That's first part of the question. And the second part of the question is, did you see yourself changing over time as you became closer to the subjects and closer to the film?
Actually, when you immerse yourself in anything, you are bound to change. And we all changed. We learned so much. I think the entire journey of documentary filmmaking is about learning. You learn every single day. The biggest change, Gita, is what we all witnessed was with the patriarch of the head of 1,000 villages. When I first met him, the first thing he said to me is, he looked at me like this and said, "There is no place for women here." And I mean, I didn't even know what the second question was to be after a statement like this. But that's when I realized that I had to change my lens. I was also carrying a lens of bias against him. Mm-hmm. And when I started with a clear lens, he also put his guards down, and that's when we had a real conversation. And over time, Gita, I saw the maximum change in him. The man who stopped and opposed me today is the biggest advocate for Sunrise. He is the one who is screening Sunrise across 700 villages in Haryana. And that to us is the biggest triumph. I mean, we did not expect this. And when you see change like this, it leaves you very, very hopeful that change is possible. And I hope I have left everybody with that kind of hope, because this is a fight that we cannot afford to lose.
Absolutely. This story you just told us about how he changed at the end of the film. I think in the film you show him saying that we will socially boycott people who practice female feticide, and he's changed his perspective completely. Was that as a result of him becoming aware about, through the film, through your interviews, through his interactions with Sunil and others? Was it a question of awareness that opened his eyes, do you think?
It was absolutely. We did not target him, right? So the entire the style was not to pin him down. In fact, we made him part of the journey. It was his independent realization which happened, and I come to the line that Sunil Jaglan, the village chief, says in the film. I realized I changed. When other men realize, they will change too. Mm-hmm. And I think it's that moment of realization that every man has to have, and that belongs to him. He owns it. And that's when you will see change.
Yeah. That's fascinating. With him, who was so opposed to everything changing, I think that leaves me very hopeful
Yes.
for change. So let me ask you a little bit about whether this film is, in your view, an Indian film about Indian issues, or is there a message that viewers in the US can take away from this film as well?
I'm so glad, Gita, you asked me this question. The film is shot, in the northern state of India in Haryana, but this is not a Haryana story. And this Sunrise is not just a film from India. Gender violence, gender bias is a global reality. The fact that the heroes have come from here, the fact that this is a fight for gender justice, but this is happening worldwide. And this is exactly what United Nations Under-Secretary General, who flew to India to unveil Sunrise, said that, this story could be from anywhere, but it's the fact that these men who happen to be from India and from Haryana, who are changing the narrative on inequality, becomes a global story. Because this is what we need. We need to define the true essence of masculinity. Who is a real man? These men are the real men. And this is what United Nations wants to showcase across 71 priority countries, the true essence of who is a he for she hero. And a he for she hero is a man who stands in solidarity with a woman in a bold and united force for gender equality. And this is what it is. And that is why this becomes a global story.
Yes, I think looking at it from an India lens is rather narrow, and you're absolutely right that this kind of bigger picture is really what you're trying to communicate through the film, and it has messages for everyone all over the world. This UN he for she movement and the role your film plays, that must make you very proud.
Absolutely honored and humbled. The film was taken by the United Nations post-completion, which is very rare. And that made us, actually, it gave us so much more strength to continue the fight, because we felt whatever we did, what they called it is a responsible film. And Gita, really, this goes out to, people in media, people who are making films. That is also a responsibility that you carry as a filmmaker. It's very easy to sensationalize, but very difficult to sensitize. And I really hope, a film like Sunrise, it's a small film, change cannot be forced, but I really hope it is able to stir a dialogue. And for that will be success to us if it can stir a dialogue.
I loved your sentence, not to sensationalize, but to sensitize. I think that's really, really important. So a question about what happens now. What's happened since the film? Can you update us on Kusum's fight, whether it went to the High Court? And in general, I think all of us have been so moved that we would like to help as well. So two questions. Firstly, can you update us on the story, Kusum story? And secondly, how can we help?
So much is happening every day. There is movement on the ground. Most importantly, Sunrise has started screening across schools and universities in India. For us, it's very important that, it's very important to sensitize boys at 15 and not men at 50. It's too late. So for us, the focus was very much schools and universities. And so screenings have started across India. We are screening across the police force, which is very important, because we all know that unless the police is gender sensitized, justice will not only be delayed, it shall be denied. So these were the two important areas. And as far as Kusum and Jitender's fight goes, it's going to be a long and hard fight. As a farmer, as I mentioned, he has lost his land fighting for her justice, but crowdfunding started with the screenings of Sunrise, and he has been able to secure a very strong lawyer, but it's never enough. He is fighting against 8 alleged rapists who have a lot of money. And that has made his life very, very tough. He is unable to get a job because nobody wants to hire him for the fear that they will be attacked. So if support can come for the protagonists in the film, we will be most grateful, because they are the ones who are on the ground fighting every single day. So that would be amazing. Any amount of help goes a long way in their fight, but we want them to win so that they become an example and give strength to others to follow.
Thank you, Vibha. I want to ask, how can audience members contribute?
So we are going through a very big organization called Give India, where the money will go towards the legal battles for Kusum and Jitender. So if anybody who would like to be part of the legal fight, my email is flashing below. Please contact us and we will connect you to Give India, so that your funds will go directly from Give India into the legal fight.
Thank you. And then one last question before I turn to audience questions. What's next for you?
Gita, usually what I do with my films, I did that with Daughters of Mother India too. I stay with my film for 2 years to use the film as a way to stir a dialogue and to work towards impact. So, in these unprecedented times, as we are facing one of the biggest humanitarian crises, domestic violence, as we all know, has seen, unfortunately, a dramatic rise. I will continue to be with Sunrise and screen as widely as possible to make men a part of this struggle to end gender violence and end gender inequality. So very much I am with the film for the next 1 year. And I'm grateful for all the support it is receiving. We could not do this without you. So thank you very much.
As you said, the next film will find you, and we are all very curious and eager to hear what that one will be. Let me turn to audience questions. Let me see if... okay, here's a question from Raj Kaushik, who asks, what sets apart Haryana in terms of gender issues as opposed to other states which have tackled similar issues?
Raj, Haryana, being in the, is a northern state in India, and it's infamous for its deep-set patriarchal norms. But what really sets it apart is it has one of the most skewed sex ratios. And that is a result of the rampant but illegal female feticide that is happening. I have to say that there are very, very aggressive and committed, programs that have been unleashed by the government to curb this, but yet it always at the end comes down to the people. People have to be part of that change. So this is really what sets Haryana apart. And I think as a result of the skewed sex ratio, crime against women is one of the highest in the state. And, I repeat this again, there is a committed and efforts by the government to curb all of this. So, and change is coming.
So following up on your point about the government, let me ask a question from Roman, who says, what concrete steps has the state taken for on-ground improvement, which you felt did not help, And conversely, what steps, in your opinion, led to significant change?
Roman, there is a lot, I mean, when I was filming in Haryana, I was seeing there were posters everywhere, from bus stops to hospitals, which basically said, cherish your daughter as much as your son, a daughter is equal to the son. So there was a lot of messaging everywhere. I mean, it was on walls everywhere that I went. And also the message that was flashing was female feticide is illegal, and you could be imprisoned for it. There are fines for it. But at the end of it, Roman, what we realized is, this change in narrative has to come from home. These conversations have to start very much at home. Why did Jitender Chattar, the farmer, agree to marry a gang rape survivor? I think a large part was his parents. In the film, you will see the mother blesses Jitender Chattar for taking this step. I mean, there is a scene which still touches me when she looks at me and says, I have raised my son with so much love and care. And today he's out there fighting for her justice. And if he dies fighting for her, at least he would have died a noble death. I mean, I still cry when I hear this. This is the conversation that he must have grown up with, and therefore he was able to take a step like this. So I would say, change, be the change you want to see. So don't leave it just to the government and the police, but bring that change at home.
That is a really powerful message. And that scene of the mother, I also found very, very touching and moving, because again, from that
Gita, every time, we've done over 200 screenings, there's not a single time that people did not clap for her. And, did not clap for Jitender Chattar when he said, I will not only fight for you, I will, fight for your justice till the end. People were getting up, people were whistling, I've just never seen reactions like this. But that's exactly what they deserve.
Yeah, and the fact that you're showing this in schools, I think that is really amazing, because as you said, you have to get the values in the family. And that starts with children. It starts also obviously with parents, and not just the state. So the state can take a heavy hand, but clearly that's not working as well. It has to come from within. So in this vein of, the state and the state's role, and maybe using this punishment approach, one of the questions that Prem Gupta asks is, did you consider including an account of a family which had gone ahead with female feticide and faced legal consequences?
No, we did not do that. Again, when you have only 49 minutes for a film, we've got to remain very focused on, the journey. And therefore, we just stuck to the 3 characters and followed them through. I have hours and hours and hours of footage that never got used, which I personally think was very, very important. But maybe there's a part 2 for Sunrise.
Yes, that's the next film then.
Yeah, there.
So here's another question. We talked about the role of family, the role of state. Now Mercedes asks, can you talk about the role of NGOs in creating awareness and change on the ground?
Absolutely. It is a very important and critical role. I say this all the time, that I am the storyteller, but it's these people on the ground, the workers in the NGOs who are making impact happen. They are a very, very critical part of the movement. And we can see, I've seen the NGOs on the ground, working towards women's safety. They are the ones who are called out to, when any woman is at risk. And, the fact that you're part of an NGO, you are already very committed. They were incredible on the ground, and we did work with them very, very closely.
So let me ask a personal question now. And this is a question from Nishant Uniyal, who asks, were there any gender bias incidents in your personal life which inspired you to pursue this film?
I'm glad, Nishant, you've asked this question. So, first I did Daughters of Mother India, which, put the spotlight on rape and gender violence. Then I went and took it to the next level, which was making men a part of the struggle. And everybody presumed that I'm a mother of daughters. Nishant, no, there has been no personal incident in my life, but I have to say that I am a mother of 2 sons. And I carry a greater responsibility on how I raise my sons. People keep talking about, oh, how have you raised your daughters? No, the onus lies on how we are raising our sons. If I raise them with that sense of entitlement and privilege, then I am part of the problem. And this is what I say to everybody. As a mother of sons, you carry a greater responsibility. You have to equip them to basically create a gender equal world.
Thank you, Vibha, for that answer. And also growing up in India myself, I think this question is always something we face, which is, in a very patriarchal society, at least parts of India, how is it that you decided to go ahead and, get an education and a career? So in your own personal life, what made you choose this path?
I always, I went to Boston University to pursue journalism, and I think that was life-changing for me. A lot of my friends were getting married in India, and, I remember my, friends of my father, my parents said, don't send her. Don't send her to America. She'll be too qualified to get married. And my father said, I'll take that chance. And he sent me, and everything changed from there. It just changed my entire perspective. And, when I returned, I was questioning on a lot of pressing issues. And I think that changed my path. And then I met Vishal, who I truly believe is the best role model for my boys. When you see a man who stands by you, who believes in your vision, that is the biggest example that you can give to your children. So I have been very blessed with a journey where I have had very, very positive men in my life who've played a very important role. And I'm grateful for that. And I know how much it can help in, taking the conversation forward. So I really hope I know there are incredible men out there. You are the ones who are going to change the narrative, and I am confident that the others will follow.
Vibha, that's so interesting that you talked also about your personal story, about going to Boston, changing, coming back, finding Vishal. So thank you for sharing that with us. From my own personal perspective, I can say that we can only do these things together. So we really have to be doing it as a team together, and then we can actually make a difference to gender violence all over the world. There are a few.
Gita, to add to that, you brought up a very important point, which is, we are not using men to protect us. We don't need that. And you've brought this up about being an ally, which is very, very important. That's what we need. We need men to stand in solidarity in a bold and united force. That is what is much needed and is the need of these times.
Yes. It's very well put. Vibha, there are more questions coming in, so let me just make sure I get to these. So one of these is interesting. Loretta asks, did you face any opposition to releasing the film?
I'm glad, Loretta, you brought this up. With any documentary, there is always that fear because, the issue is volatile. It is delving into, thorny, it's a thorny subject, but we did not. Actually, the film has won the President's Award with the National Film Award, which is the highest recognition in Indian cinema. So once you have the National Film Award, there is nobody to oppose you. Not a single cut happened at the censor board, because we do need the censor certificate. And, very shortly after that, United Nations partnered with us. So as far as Sunrise is concerned, we are unstoppable. So this partnership has actually been golden in terms of addressing the issue. Now the question is, we would very much like to be screening in Haryana and, across the state, but we don't know what the reaction will be there. So that's a wait and watch.
So so you had to work with the government to get this release. So when you say you have to wait and watch, you mean you'd need the state government as well to approve?
Absolutely. So I don't need the government to release the film, but if I have to enter the state of Haryana and I would like to do it on a very large scale, I will need the support of the government, the state government, to do this. We would really like this to enter, schools, the government schools, and across the villages. But irrespective, we are moving forward.
So let me just turn to other questions from the audience. So Dr. Naveen asks, what aspects of the problem did you want to address but were unable to, or not able to get access to?
I think Dr. Naveen, the issue was, I think when I was filming, honestly, we were fearful because we were following a gang rape survivors trial. During the court proceedings, they had seen us. They had seen me, so I was identifiable. And what would happen is, by 5 o'clock, it got very dark because we were filming in winter, and many times we lost cell reception. So there was always that fear that we are being watched or things could go wrong. I remember we asked for police protection, and there was a cop who was a very junior cop who said, what police protection? If things have to go wrong, your car will meet with an accident. So, I could have gone much deeper into the case, but the fear was always to get out at the right time. And luckily, we came out absolutely safe and intact. And as I say right now, we are unstoppable. With all the partnerships that have come in place, we have no fear right now to be screening across the country. But at that time, I think the fear was always to get out on time because of the rape trial.
Yeah. So
and in the film, you've seen it when the alleged rapist came out, when the verdict came out, and they threw money outside the court, right? So, these were the kind of people that we were dealing with. So there was obviously, you had to move on the side of caution.
Yeah. And given this is still going through the legal process, I think you made a conscious decision to really focus on the story from the lens of Kusum and Jitender, and you don't really get into the details of these 8 alleged perpetrators very much. And I think what you just shared also tells us it's not just the film that's powerful, but you and the film crew as well, to have put up with, these kinds of threats while you were filming this. That must have been really difficult to go through that.
And I'm really grateful for the team to be sticking by this, because it's each one for their own fight. I'm fortunate that it's the same team from Daughters of Mother India, so not a single credit has changed. And in this journey, you actually become a family. So we went right from Daughters of Mother India to Sunrise, and there was such a strong solidarity within the team, which I feel makes a lot of difference to the final outcome of the film. So it's never just one person's vision. It is a collaborative team effort that made Sunrise.
Yeah, in addition to this narrative power and the beautiful story you tell and the construction of the story and all of that, I thought the cinematography was really beautiful. I mean, it was so well done.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
the director of photography is Athar Singh Saini, and he is from Haryana. So it was a very different kind of journey for him, and he really feels he has given back to his state. There was not a single light that was used in the entire filming, and we operated with very small cameras so as to not to intimidate the people who we were interviewing. And Gita, it took 8 months to edit Sunrise. And actually our editor, Hemanti Sarkar, is one of the most, is a critically acclaimed and one of the most well-respected editors in Bollywood. She spent 8 months editing Sunrise, and actually has also won the National Film Award for Best Editing Non-Feature from the President of India. So we're very, very happy that the person who I admire greatly won her first National Film Award with Sunrise.
Yeah, definitely a great team effort and a great team working together on this. So there's a question here about, are there other areas? This is from Sumit Vij. Are there any other areas in India outside of northern India that also share the gender imbalance issue?
Absolutely. Sumit, the problem is across India. It's more so in the north because of the patriarchal attitudes. It's much stronger in the north, definitely much stronger than the south, because the south also has the concept of a matriarch society, and also the level of education for women is much higher in the south. But yes, the problem is prevalent everywhere, but much, much more in the north and much more in Haryana.
So another question here from Dawn, who asks, aren't the doctors who abort the female fetuses complicit?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a huge racket. And actually, Dawn, to have that doctor speak, I don't know what his repercussions were after he spoke up, actually, with all of them. When I say that they dared to break the silence, because the repercussions can be very, very strong. Absolutely. He has spoken up. The racket is tremendous, and that is why these feticides are happening, and they are happening under very dangerous circumstances for the mother. It has, in many cases, has led to the mother dying because the abortion is done in an illegal way, which is, it's done out of a truck, it's done out of a van. It's horrible, but people are still willing that the mother dies. But the thing is to end it. That's what the doctor said. I think he was very brave to have spoken up. The police was so brave. The police officer who spoke up was very brave. And they've had the repercussions for speaking up.
As I was watching the film, I was thinking this idea of the superiority of the male child. I know there's a long history of it. I think your film talks about the reasons for it. There are economic reasons, but also cultural reasons. So that takes a huge toll on women, I would imagine, and a huge psychological toll. Did how did that play out as you were talking to the women in these villages? How did the women react to the story and to being part of the story?
At first they would always ask me, how many children do you have? And when I told them I have 2 children, then the next question was, do you have daughters or sons? And when I said sons, the dialogue changes because they automatically put me on a higher level because I am a mother of sons. You can see that. And Gita, unfortunately, this continues even in the big cities. So this bias, or in favor of the son, is not just a class issue. It's not a rural versus urban India story. It is across. When Sunil Jaglan said that the nurses did not take money when his daughters were born, we experienced the same thing in the hospital where my son was born. It's a private hospital. It's an elite hospital. But as soon as they found out that I had delivered a son, the nurses were there for a much bigger tip. So this bias is across. And I think sometimes the women felt that I don't understand because I will not be treated differently. So I had to break that first. And then we were able to have a conversation on it. But absolutely, this whole bias is across. And this is what I realized. The only difference is that in urban India, the packaging is different. But it is very deep-rooted.
Yeah. This is a big problem, but I think your film is taking steps towards creating awareness and making sure that people realize, how this has an impact. So this lens that you take on how the unbalanced sex ratio leads to gender violence. I mean, I think that is a very powerful story that you tell. There are a lot of questions coming in now, and we don't have much time.
I'm loving this.
So, let me ask a question from Sandy, who says, did you lose sleep when making this film? How did you prevent the tragic circumstances of your interview subjects from affecting you personally?
Sandy, it takes a huge toll personally. In my previous film, Daughters of Mother India, unfortunately, we follow the gang rape of a 5-year-old. And, I remember when we received the police call and I went, we went where the 5-year-old was. We found a bloodied body lying there. And then we rushed her to the hospital. And I remember calling up my husband and saying, I am not brave enough to tell the story. I want to come home. And he spoke to me and said, you cannot unsee what you've seen. And the only closure you will get is when your film is complete and a life is saved. And this is exactly what we do. It takes a huge emotional toll because you get very, very attached to the subject, but you've got to move on. I have to share with you that when the final verdict of Kusum came, when all the rapists that she had identified were set free, she was pregnant for the second time and she miscarried on the spot. And it was such a dark day for us. And I remember looking at Jitender Chattar, and I said, what are you going to do? And he says, he got up and he said, I'm going to fight, and I'm going to fight till the end. And that's when I said, that's going to be the end of the film. Because you have to have that kind of grit and determination in this fight. This is what you go through, but you've got to get up, and start your fight again.
Vibha, this was such a great comment and answer, and your emotional response clearly comes through. And I think we all feel that watching the film and how it must have been to make such a film and communicate these things. It must be a really difficult thing. So there are other questions, but I think this is a great place to end this conversation. But of course, we can continue it offline, and I'm sure people can write to you and also help the cause if they'd like to do so. But I'd like to just end by saying thank you for what you do. Thank you for making these films that really shine a spotlight on these social issues, and not just shine the spotlight, but then lead to change. You know, I'm a marketing professor, and it's always difficult to bring about social change. And I think one of the most powerful ways of doing that is through telling these stories in this really compelling way that you do, and then making sure the film doesn't just get awards, and it should get awards, they're great films, but you're also making sure that people see them all across the country, that young people see them in schools, that the police see them, that people become aware. And I think that besides making beautiful films, shining the spotlight, what you're also doing is creating this awareness, which will hopefully lead then to social change. And we can only hope that that will be one of the lasting impacts of these films. So let me end there by saying thank you so much, Vibha, and thank you for being part of this conversation. We really appreciate it and appreciate the opportunity to be part of this journey with you.
Oh, thank you so much, Gita. And I am truly, truly grateful for the overwhelming response. I know that the numbers kept changing and it got higher and higher. For us, each view, we hope, brings about change. So thank you very, very much for all the support to all the viewers who have watched Sunrise. Be the change you want to see. Thank you so much, Gita.
Thank you.